Okay, I'm ready to put the sleeves in, and look at this cute little sleeve. So when you're doing your sleeve, you want to get your sleeve all done before you put it in, and the pattern companies or the guide sheets will often tell you to hem it and put a casing or elastic or something on there before you sew up your seam, but that's not how we recommend. We recommend first putting in your basting stitches for the gathers, and I've got those in at 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4, and then I went ahead and stitched the sleeve underarm seam, and I did that using the French seam method, so it's all enclosed. And now I can go ahead and turn it under, but I'm going to put my sleeve in first. So I've gone ahead and pulled it up, I've basted it, and then I pulled up my gathering stitches are up along this basting so that it looks like it's about ready to go in. So now I'm just going to line things up and see if I have to pull more out or take some in, put some in of the gathers. But so what I'm going to do is I take my dress and I work from the inside, and then I take my sleeve and I put right sides together. Alright, now I'm going to actually sew this from the direction of the gathers so that if I have to do any last minute adjusting, then I can get to it. And now I'm going to, so because I'm going to sew from the inside, or I'm going to sew from the sleeve, inside the sleeve, because I want to be able to check, make sure the gathers work out. So I'm going to go ahead and start pinning. The first thing I pin is my underarm seam, and I want to get those matched, and this will be stitched at 5/8, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. And then I line up my notches, and my single notch indicates the front part of the sleeve, so I've made sure I've lined that up together. And get a pin in there. Now, because I'm sewing an inward circle to an outside circle, I want to make sure that I pin it right where I'm going to sew, and that it's not puckered up where the stitching will be. So, okay, now I'm nearing my gathers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start matching up. So I've got here my shoulder seam, so I'm going to match that up with the top of the sleeve cap. So the very top of the sleeve cap goes at the shoulder seam. Now I just did a little snip, and so I've got to find my little snip, and because I've already gathered it, it can kind of get buried in there, but I'm not seeing it there. So let's see where my snip is. See, and if your fabric unravels, then you'll lose that. This unravels, but I didn't think it did enough that it would lose it. So let me see if I can just find that little zipper mark right at the neckline. Huh. Because it should be about right here somewhere. If I didn't cut in deep enough, then I'll start to lose all these gathers. Well, that's weird. I must have done a real faint one. Okay, I think that's it. That, well, that doesn't look like where it should be. Okay. I am going to find I might put the pattern up and see where that is, because I think what's happened is this has done some fraying between when I clipped and did a little snip along those dots. It might have come out. So I will find those and be right back. Okay, so I found my little snips. With all this gathers, they were kind of hard to find, but I found them. So now I'm going to keep pinning it, and I just start on one side and go all the way around. And you can see it's very small. And also I want to make sure that I get, yeah, here's this, that I line up my mark. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm not worried so much about having it fit and look perfect as I am lining up the sleeve to the little balancing dots. Of course, center, well, the shoulder seam is 1, so there's that, and I just did little snips so that I can, so that it's easy to work with here. Okay, let's see. All right, here's this snip. Okay, and that matches up. That'll make sure that my fullness, my gathers are evenly distributed. Okay, so now, and then I've got the dart here, so I can pin those. I'm running out of pins here. Oh, let's see. Okay, and now that I've got that, I'm gonna, then I start working and decide if I've got too many gathers. If I do, then I let some out. But I look to make sure they're equal distant, and it looks good, so I'm ready to pin another pin in there. All right, let's see. Okay. I'm going to go get some more pins. All right, so I have some more pins to finish this up. So once I get the amount, it pulled to the amount I need, then I'm just putting my pin in, just going through and making sure that it's evenly distributed, and making sure my raw edges are good. Okay, here I am at this one. I can take some of those out, some of these gathers out, because I don't need as many right here. This just has a few gathers on towards the end. Okay, all these. Okay, and I've got my double notches together. It's for the back. That means that's the back of the sleeve to the back of the dress. That looks good. And I just have one more little area to do. And again, I've got too many gathers right here because it starts to straighten out here, smooth out. Okay. Okay, I think I'm ready to sew it. Okay, so I have the little sleeve in here. It's at 5/8, and I'm not going to worry about back stitching. I'm just going to come over around and go over top. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and I'll take out my pins as I get to them. And this is a very small little sleeve, so you can only do a little bit at a time. And you want to keep it smooth so you don't get, I'll just put the pins down there. You don't want to get little pleats in there. And you want it, so you're permanent stitching between the 2 rows of basting, the 1/2 inch and the 3/4. I've got that basting thread kind of hanging out there, so I'm going to move that. Yeah, so you just have to do, I think I'm doing like maybe not even an inch before I have to stop and rearrange. But it's a small sleeve, so I think I can do about an inch at a time now that I'm towards the top. And again, you just want to keep your 5/8 right in between those two rows. And then kind of turn your sleeve as you go. And this, now I noticed that this one, I want to get this a little bit more consistent here. So right before I get there, I can kind of fix that. So you always want to sew with your gathers up. Okay, and here's a pin I gotta take out. I got buried in there. And just nice little consistent folds here. This has quite a few gathers right here. Okay. And I'm just gonna, now it's starting to get a little bit smoother, less gathers now. There's still a few. Okay, almost finished here. I'm making a size 3, so you can imagine how much fun this would be on a size 1. Okay, so now I'm just gonna snip those threads, and we'll look and see how it looks. Okay, so I finished sewing in the sleeve, and I can see here on the outside that there's no tucks. And also on the inside, now I'm looking at the actual sleeve, and I can see that my gathers are nice, consistent little folds, and it looks great. Isn't that a cute little sleeve for a little 3-year-old? So that looks great. So how would I finish this? Well, the first thing we do when we put in a sleeve is I just press the seam allowance flat, like as it was sewn. Okay, and then I'm going to trim. I'm going to cut off my basting threads right now because they're bugging me, and I'll get rid of those. And then I do have to take out the basting thread on the side that shows. Remember, I did the 3/4 of an inch, and with that it's going to show on the right side, so I've got to take that stitching out, but my other stitching I can just leave in because it doesn't show, it just stays in the seam allowance. So I'm going to kind of cut away some of those threads because there's a lot of threads, so we'll get rid of some of those that we don't need. Here's some more. Okay, so but the last one I've got to take out, so I'm gonna start to take out that. And if you have a seam ripper, that helps. I don't have a seam ripper sitting right here, so I'll just use this pin. So I just need to, okay, well, I probably do need, oh, I think that's coming. Okay, all right, there, so I got that one. Let's see, here we are. There we go. And now I can go to the right side and take that row that's showing. So now I've got all my, well, here's a few more basting threads, but I've taken out the ones that show, and now I'm just getting rid of these that are long. Okay, so that looks great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do another row of stitching, and I'm going to do it kind of on the bottom half of that sleeve. The notches are pretty close together, so I think I'll go a little bit beyond each knot so that I'm doing mostly the bottom. And what you're seeing here, this stitching is actually basting the edges together, the lining to the dress. And so now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to do an extra row of stitching at 1/4 of an inch away all the way around. I'm just going to go from here to about here underneath, and then I'm going to trim that out. So if you want to watch me do that, I can do that part pretty easy. So I just go an inch away, and I'm about maybe an inch away from the notch. Normally you just have to do this notch to notch, but because these notches are so close together, I'm going to go beyond them just a little bit and just do another row of regulation stitch length to just reinforce that underarm, so that when if it gets a lot of stress, it'll help to keep that intact. Let's clip that while we're at it. Okay, so now let's trim. So underneath the arm where I've done some, and did the extra row, 1/4 inch, I'm just going to trim about 1/8 of an inch away from that. Okay, and I can tell that it's the darker stitching. So okay, so I've got that. Now above here I'm going to stitch. So I've got like 3/8 under the arm. Up here I can leave a little bit longer, but I've got to take away some of the bulk. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that to a little bit longer than my 3/8, between 3/8 and 1/2 inch. So this, get rid of some of that bulk, and then I'm ready to finish those edges. So what's a good way to finish the edges on a arm side on the sleeve? Well, there we go. Okay, so there I've got an extra row of stitching underneath. I've got it trimmed. Now I'm ready to finish that. So my options are, I could do a zigzag here or a serpentine. I could serge it, or I could put Seams Great, which you guys haven't used, but we just told you about it. Or I could go ahead and do like a Hong Kong binding. I could put some binding thread on it, binding fabric to wrap around it. Because all my other seams are enclosed, I might opt to keep this one enclosed as well, which makes it really nice inside. I just did a little zigzag here, but that's tied in with the zipper tape, so that wasn't bad. So I think I might go ahead and do Seams Great on here. So I'm gonna go get some of that, and I'll show you how we use the Seams Great. Since you didn't do a sample with it, I'll just show you what it's like. Okay, so one of the things you can use is Seams Great, which is a stretched tricot, and when you stretch it, it kind of shapes, and you can actually just put that right over top, and then you can zigzag that on, and you just put it right in the middle and zigzag it. Another thing, if you don't want to use that, you could use bias tape. So I could take this, just this single fold bias tape, and I could just lay this over top and stitch that on. And that's a nice way to finish it as well. Or you could make your own bias tape out of the lining fabric like we do for the Hong Kong binding. Sometimes this is tricky to get on. Sometimes it's easier to fold it out like this and get the crease at the at like the 1/4 inch. And then once you get the crease like this, then you can just take it and go over top and fold it down, and then you can stitch along that edge because this edge is already caught. So, and you can see how nice that would be too, a little binding. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and do the seams great, and we'll see if we think if it's great or not. And since it's new, you know, something different, you may want to try it. We have it in white and black. We have quite a bit. So I need to first put this on zigzag. And then I've just got it pinned on to start with, because you just kind of wrap this around and pull it a little bit as you go. So I'm just going to put that underneath there, and I'm going to set up the zigzag, and then I can move this pin that was just kind of holding it on while I started. So I just wrap that around, fold it in, and start zigzagging. You want to zigzag it near the edge. Okay, stop, rearrange. Okay, get a couple inches clearance there, and put this over top. Let's see if I can get it a little closer to that edge. Okay. Rearrange. You have to stop and rearrange a little bit as you go. And what's nice is that it stretches, kind of stretches around it. Just kind of keep that. It does help if you stitch this first and kind of flatten your seam. I just went ahead and started so I could keep going here. Oh, let's get that out of there. Okay. And it's a small sleeve, so it's over before you even know it. Going here. Oh, I don't think it didn't quite stay in the fabric when I did that. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I can cut this now. I usually just cut a piece extra long so that I don't have to try and guess exactly how much I need. I just cut an extra long chunk, and then when I come around to the edge, I just make sure that it overlaps a little bit. Okay, so we got that on, so look how nice that looks. So I've got the seams great, and it just covered that nice with that little tricot. So lightweight, you can't really see it, but it makes for a nice edge, and it's smooth, and the zigzag keeps it right there. The zigzag, I just did the regulation zigzag, so it kept it on really nice. So we are finished with our sleeve. I'll just press that just kind of flat. I won't press into the gathers, just the sleeve. And now it is finished. So there you have it. For the hem on the sleeve, I did a clean finish. I turned it up 1/4 of an inch all the way around and pressed it. Then I turned it under 3/4 of an inch because it's a 1-inch hem. But I wanted to wait and do the hem after I put the sleeve in, because you can see how close that hem is to where the arm size seam is, where I put in the sleeve. And I think it would be kind of a pain to try and do it. So now that I've got it pressed and pinned, I simply will just take it and stitch it at right near that folded edge. And it's going to be tricky, so I might, it's going to be, well, I can just do it this way, I guess. I'm trying to think, I think it's easier to go do it inside like that, so I think I will turn it to the other direction so that I want to do it inside so that I get the folded edge. But to do that, you've got to make sure that you have pressed it under. Okay, so let's see. I better put it on straight stitch. I don't want to zigzag this. I just finished zigzagging. Okay, so, and I want to do it near the edge. So I've got it to where I can take out this pin. It's in the way. And I've just kind of lined it up to where I'm about 1/16 away. You can hand stitch this, or you can machine stitch it, because it's a little sleeve hem. So that won't make too big of a difference. Whatever you like to do. If it was a real fancy dress, I might choose to hand stitch it. Where this is a little bit, just a little cotton dress, I'm going to just machine stitch it right here. I'm going to take out your pins before you stitch over them. It's, without stabbing yourself, because it's your goal. Okay. Yeah, you want to get all your pins out. You don't want to discover them after you're wearing them. It's not too comfortable. One time I made a quilt for myself, and I was sleeping one night several months later, and I felt this sharp, prickly thing, and I found a pin in my quilt. So make sure you get all of these out. I'm just going to back stitch here a few stitches, and I'm finished. Okay, because I have a nice matching thread to the background color, then that looks great. So there's my little sleeve. Now I'll just press that hem good, and I'm finished.